The rise of Jungkook from a South Korean artist to a central figure of focus within the American entertainment and commercial industry was not a predictable development when BTS first debuted in 2013. At that time, the US market was still deeply dominated by its own pop stars, hip-hop icons, and legacy acts. However, in recent years, Jungkook has emerged as a unique convergence point, where global culture, commerce, and entertainment intersect in the US market. This positioning as a focal figure is not simply about celebrity status, but about how he has come to represent a turning point for cross-cultural integration, industry recalibration, and the shift in what American media and corporations consider influential. The socio-cultural context in which his presence has grown, and why this unexpected development has created a ripple effect across entertainment, branding, and digital ecosystems in America, shifting definitions of focus in the US industry. Traditionally, the US entertainment industry has centered its focus on domestic stars or Western artists with international appeal. Figures like Michael Jackson, Madonna, Beyoncé, and more recently Drake or Taylor Swift have set the standard for what the industry considered mainstream focus. The notion of focus has usually meant media visibility, corporate endorsements, radio play, streaming presence, and the ability to set trends that others follow. Jungkook's arrival at this level of focus is striking because he originates from a completely different industry ecosystem. South Korea's music market has historically been viewed as a regional player, not as a direct challenger to US dominance. Yet Jungkook, both through his role in BTS and his solo ventures, has reversed that expectation. His focus in America cannot be explained solely by fandom size. Instead, it reflects a structural shift in how US industries acknowledge external influence. The mechanisms of his emergence as a focal figure. To understand why Jungkook is now unexpectedly at the center of the American industry's attention, it is necessary to look at the key mechanisms that have placed him there. These include digital distribution and the algorithmic shift. American consumption patterns have been transformed by platforms like Spotify, YouTube, and TikTok. Jungkook's content, both musical and visual, thrives in algorithm-driven environments. His voice, performances, and brand collaborations frequently surface in recommendation cycles, making him highly visible in the US without traditional gatekeeping. This bypasses older reliance on radio or television exposure. Corporate brand integration. Global companies headquartered or heavily invested in the US market, such as Calvin Klein, Hyundai, and Samsung, have increasingly used Jungkook as a face of campaigns. For the American industry, this positions him not as an outsider, but as a crucial bridge for cross-market strategies. His campaign with Calvin Klein in particular has placed him alongside Hollywood and US pop culture figures, reinforcing his industry focus. Cross-cultural adaptability. Unlike many international stars who face difficulty adjusting to US trends, Jungkook's artistry and persona are adaptable across markets. His English-language tracks, collaborations with US producers, and stylistic choices resonate with American audiences. Yet, he retains distinct cultural authenticity, which is highly valued in an era where audiences are increasingly skeptical of forced homogenization. Commercial implications for the US industry. The US entertainment and advertising industries are profit-driven, and Jungkook's presence has significant financial implications. The American industry's focus on him is directly tied to measurable outcomes. Streaming and chart performance. Jungkook's solo releases have achieved high rankings on Billboard charts, signaling profitability in one of the industry's most competitive metrics. For US labels, distributors, and streaming services, his numbers are not simply fandom-driven, but part of larger global consumption trends that shape algorithmic recommendations. Brand market expansion. American and global brands have seen measurable spikes in visibility and consumer engagement when tied to Jungkook. For example, Calvin Klein's campaigns featuring him trended across US social platforms, with American consumers actively engaging in both online and offline spaces. This makes him a lucrative focus for corporations seeking to capture Gen Z and millennial attention. Concert and event economics. When BTS performed in the US, economic impact reports noted spikes in local tourism, hospitality, and retail revenues. While Jungkook is currently enlisted in military service, the precedent set by his previous appearances ensures that industry planners in the US still view him as a future driver of economic activity. Sociocultural context. Why the shift was unexpected. The unexpected nature of Jungkook's rise as an American industry focus becomes clearer when placed within the socio-cultural backdrop of US media. For decades, American pop culture exported its entertainment outward, while seldom embracing external acts to the same degree. The few exceptions, such as British invasion bands in the 1960s or Latin crossovers in the 1990s, were rare and tied to cultural proximity. Jungkook, however, represents a different trajectory. A non-Western artist whose identity remains tied to Korean culture while simultaneously being absorbed into US mainstream consciousness. This challenges long-held assumptions in the US industry about what audiences will accept. Streaming-era listeners are more open to non-English songs, and younger consumers often discover artists online rather than through traditional gatekeepers. Jungkook's rise reflects these generational and technological shifts. Why he is now the convergence point. At the center of this transformation is Jungkook's unique ability to function as a convergence point. For the American industry, he is not only a singer, but also a marketing vehicle for cross-border commerce, a representation of changing audience preferences, a testing ground for global integration strategies. This convergence means that his role extends beyond music or celebrity. In US boardrooms, marketing campaigns, and media discussions, his name appears as a strategic reference point. In this sense, the American industry's focus on him is both practical and symbolic. He represents where the global market is headed. Over time, however, the framing changed. By the time Jungkook released his solo projects and engaged with US cultural institutions such as the Billboard Music Awards or late-night talk shows, the narrative had shifted. Media outlets began positioning him not as a peripheral act from Korea, but as a central figure in conversations about global music trends. For instance, articles in Rolling Stone, Variety, and Billboard have analyzed his releases with the same critical lens applied to American pop stars. This transition illustrates how US media itself has adapted to audience demand. Journalists and editors no longer treat Jungkook as a temporary global visitor, but as a consistent generator of stories, ratings, and online traffic. In this way, he becomes a focus, not because media executives planned it, but because consumer attention dictated it. Corporate strategies. Jungkook as a brand anchor. For multinational corporations with significant US presence, Jungkook functions as a brand anchor. This role is not just about attaching his face to campaigns, but about aligning entire marketing strategies around his influence. Fashion and luxury sectors. Calvin Klein is the clearest example. Its decision to feature Jungkook in campaigns was not aimed only at Asian markets, but at positioning itself as globally attuned within the American fashion scene. His advertisements ran across billboards in US cities, digital platforms, and storefronts, signaling that Jungkook is considered equally marketable to American audiences as he is to international ones. This is significant because fashion marketing in the US has historically relied on Hollywood stars, supermodels, or American musicians. By investing in Jungkook, Calvin Klein acknowledged that the traditional hierarchy of celebrity endorsements had shifted. Technology and lifestyle products. Beyond fashion, US-based tech companies and lifestyle brands have shown interest in Jungkook's image and influence. His alignment with global brands like Samsung or Spotify indirectly shapes American consumer engagement, especially among younger demographics. These strategies indicate that his commercial utility is not confined to a single sector, but is adaptable across industries. The digital ecosystem. How Jungkook reshaped US attention cycles. Another key factor in Jungkook becoming the focus of American industries lies in the restructuring of digital ecosystems. TikTok virality. Jungkook's songs, performances, and even casual livestream moments consistently trend on TikTok, a platform where US users dominate. His presence is amplified by fan edits, challenges, and algorithmic pushes, creating cycles of visibility that rival or surpass American pop stars. For the US entertainment industry, this means Jungkook is not merely participating, but setting the pace of viral culture. YouTube reach. YouTube remains a crucial metric for American media measurement. Jungkook's music videos achieve hundreds of millions of views, placing him in competition with top US acts. For advertisers, promoters, and platforms, these numbers are evidence of sustained audience demand that requires industry acknowledgement. Streaming algorithms. On Spotify and Apple Music, his solo releases regularly land on high-visibility playlists curated for American listeners. Because algorithms are influenced by global engagement, Jungkook consistently enters the listening cycle of US users even when they do not actively seek him out. This passive exposure reinforces his centrality in the digital ecosystem. Unexpected industry adaptation. The US entertainment industry is not accustomed to recalibrating around non-Western stars, yet Jungkook's trajectory forced adaptation. Record labels, streaming services, and media platforms have had to adjust their strategies to accommodate his impact. Billboard adjustments. The Billboard Hot 100 underwent methodological changes in recent years due to fan-driven consumption patterns. Jungkook's chart placements highlight the challenge of balancing traditional US airplay with global streaming numbers. His presence forced American institutions to reconsider how to measure success in an era where global influence cannot be ignored. Awards, shows, and events. Jungkook and BTS's appearances at US award shows drew record viewership, particularly among international streaming audiences. Organizers realized that featuring him brought measurable benefits. Consequently, even during his solo activities, Jungkook continues to be referenced as a desirable presence for future events. Industry forecasts. Why Jungkook remains a long-term focus. Looking forward, Jungkook's position as a focal figure in American industries is unlikely to fade. Several reasons support this projection. Demographic alignment. American Gen Z and younger millennials are increasingly global in their cultural consumption habits. Jungkook aligns perfectly with this trend, making him a sustainable focus rather than a passing phenomenon.